Good morning, children. In the previous video, you have seen the explanation of the poem My Mother. I hope all of you have understood it. And now we shall see the figure of speech, the different figure of speech in the figurative language. What is a figurative language? The use of words to express meaning beyond the literal meaning of the words themselves. So, imagery. Imagery, the poet which he has used it in the My Mother poem. What is imagery? Imagery means language which describes something in detail using words to substitute for and create sensory stimulation, including visual imagery and sound imagery. Example, mother rocking the cradle. Here, child senses with eyes and ears. Okay, and there is like another figure of speech like metaphor. Metaphor means the comparison of two unlike things in which no words of comparison like or as is used. For example, Harry was a lion in the fight. Now, the Harry was a lion in the fight. We don't use that, means it means that Harry fought like lion. Okay, so suppose he will say he he was a deer in the race. That means he ran as fast as a deer. So here when we use as or like, then it becomes simile. When we don't use as or like to compare two unlike things, then it becomes a metaphor. Okay, so when the comparison of two unlike things in which no words of comparison like as or like is used, then it becomes a metaphor. And simile means a figure of speech involving a comparison between unlike things using like, as, or as though. Okay, when we use as or like, then it becomes simile. When we don't use to compare the unlike things with any words like as or like, then it becomes a metaphor. So have you understood the difference between metaphor and simile? So these are all figure of speech that usually are used in the these are the poetic device that the poet uses in the poem. And one more figure of speech is personification. So personification is nothing but giving human traits to the non-human object which are not human, and still the human characteristics are given to it, then it becomes a personification. Like for example, the moon danced mournfully over the water. So usually the moon is still and it doesn't dance, but when we say that the moon is dancing, that becomes that we are giving the human traits. The humans only dance, isn't it? So when we are giving the human traits to any non-human objects, then it becomes a personification. Okay, so have you understood the figurative language that is usually used in the poem? So here also we have seen in My Mother the imagery that is being used. Okay, you have seen the auditory imagery which is used in the first stanza, and olfactory imagery that is used in the second stanza, and the visual kinesthetic imagery that is used in the third stanza. Okay, now let us look into the comprehension of the poem. First of all, the glossary. Let us know some meanings. Hover, which means remain in the air. Surely, small white or orange flowers that bloom in autumn. Scent, perfume or good smell. Now see the questions that are given below. You have already understood the poem. Okay, so how does the poet feel the presence of his mother? The poet feels the presence of his mother almost in whatever he does. When he plays with his toys, he feels a tune hover over them. This tune is of a song that his mother used to sing while she cradled him. When it is the early autumn morning, the smell of the shuli flowers in the air, the scent of the morning service in the temple comes to him. So this scent of his mother, when he looks outside through his bedroom window, he feels the silent gaze of his mother on his face. He feels this has spread all over the sky. So this is how he feels the presence of his mother. Then what do you understand from the statement, I cannot remember my mother? Tiger's mother passed away when he was young. In this poem, he expresses his inability to actually recall the face or the features of his mother, but often a smell or a tune triggered off in him happy moments that he shared with his mother. Does the poem convey sadness? If yes, pick out the suggestive expressions. Yes, the poet conveyed his sadness that he had lost his mother at a very less age and was remembering her with his memories. What imagery do you find in each stanza? How does it appeal to you? See, in the first stanza, the images are mother rocking the cradle and singing a song. And the sense that appeals to us is the ears. In the second stanza, the scent of my mother through smell of shuli flowers and scent of morning service in the temple. The sense which appeals to is the nose. In the third stanza, send my eyes into the blue sky and feel the stillness of my mother. The scent it appeals to us is the eyes. Now read the poem My Mother to complete the table. Who are the persons involved in stanza 1? The infant and the mother. In stanza 2, young mother. Okay, the young mother. And in stanza 3, the grown-up mother. So here he is an infant. In the stanza 1, he is an infant. And in the stanza 2, he is little bit young. And in stanza 3, he is grown up. Okay. So that way it is being described. Now, where does the action take place in stanza 1? In the house. In stanza 2, it takes place in the garden temple. The shuli flowers will be in the garden. And stanza 3, the bedroom and living room. Then what is the mother associated with? In stanza 1, the mother is rocking the cradle. Stanza 2, worshipping in the temple. Okay. And stanza 3 is nothing but tells us about the blessings. And what is the theme given in the first stanza? That is the song. Okay. Second stanza, the holiness. And the third stanza, the love and affection. Okay. Now, we all love our mother, don't we? We love her because of her certain qualities. Now, think and write about her qualities. So, what qualities can you write usually? Mother takes care of us, encourages us, sacrifices, and so on. There are many qualities that we can write about a mother. So, children, you have understood the poem My Mother, written by Rabindranath Tagore. Now let us see some reading skills of this poem. Okay. Now look at the stanzas given here. I cannot remember my mother, only sometime in the midst of my play, a tune seems to hover over my playthings, the tune of some song that she used to hum while rocking my cradle. I cannot remember my mother, but when in the early autumn morning the smell of the shuli flowers floats in the air, the scent of the morning service in the temple comes to me as the scent of my mother. Now here are some questions which you have to answer. What happens in the autumn which reminds the poet of his mother? So you know what happens in the autumn over there? Yes, in the autumn, what flowers blossom? The shuli flowers blossom. Okay. And which reminds the poet of his mother? Which reminds? Yes. Which reminds the poet of his mother? The shuli flowers reminds the poet of his mother. The smell of the shuli flowers which floats in the air reminds the poet of his mother. Okay. Now what do you think the poet's mother did with the shuli flowers? What did she do? She offered the shuli flowers to the god in the temple. Now when did the poet's mother hum the song? So the poet mother, when did she hum the song? The poet's mother hummed the song while rocking his cradle. Now, what is the poet doing when he reminds his mother? Yes, whenever he reminds about his mother, what was the poet doing? The poet was playing with his playthings. When he was playing with his playthings, the poet was reminds his mother. And what do you understand from the statement, I cannot remember my mother? So this statement, I cannot remember my mother, means why he says that I cannot remember my mother? Because his mother passed away when he was a small child, when he was an infant. So that's why he says that I cannot remember my mother. This statement means that why he cannot remember, because he was an infant. Okay. Now let us see some more stanzas. See here, I cannot remember my mother only when from my bedroom window I send my eyes into the blue of the distant sky. I feel that stillness of my mother's gaze on my face has spread all over the sky. Now in this stanza, here are some questions given. Who is the author of this poem? All of you know very well that who is the author? Yes, it is Rabindranath Tagore. Now, where does the poet find his mother? Yes, where the poet, he imagines. So, where does he find? Yes, in the distant sky. The poet finds his mother in the distant sky. And which word in the stanza means a constant look? So, a constant look, something which you continuously look at. What is the word over here? It is gaze. Gaze means a constant look. Now, why do you think the poet does not remember his mother? Why do you think the poet does not remember his mother? Because he was an infant when his mother passed away. So, he cannot remember his mother. Now, pick out the word from the stanza which is the antonym of near. Now, what is the antonym of near? You cannot write far, because you have to find out from the stanza itself. So what is the word near to far? It is distant. So what is the antonym of near here? Distant. Okay, children. So we have discussed now the reading skills. Now what you have to do is you have to write down, your assignment for today is to write all the answers of these questions given and send them to my WhatsApp number. Okay, children, you have understood the poem very well. Read the poem once again, and then answer these questions neatly. Answer in full. Just don't write in one word or something. Okay? Now, thank you.